Again, everyone, welcome to today's Fire Chat Friday. What we're going to be talking about today is a leadership update, kind of giving us a perspective of where things are at as we're closing out the fire year, addressing some of those questions that folks have submitted, as well as some additional information, and then just really what are we going to look forward to for 2023. So with that, we're going to start with Megan. Megan, go ahead.
All right. Good afternoon. Good morning, everybody. I want to say a huge thank you to all of you for leaning in, providing leadership, and great mission accomplishment for fire year 2023 with BLM. Want to echo Jennifer's sentiments. Thanks to those of you who took time out of your schedule to throw a few questions our way. It is clear from some of the employee feedback what is weighing heavily on your minds. And we will do our best today to address some of those questions. And I would encourage everyone to continue to use the chat feature with Zoom, or do the old-fashioned thing, raise your hand, come on screen, and ask questions of us. This is going to be the last fire chat of the 22 calendar year. We will resume next spring. But I'd like to first address some of the concerns that filtered through some of the comments, and that was related to, we feel like a lot of this stuff happening on pay and series is going on in a vacuum, or we don't have information. The goal of these sessions is absolutely to share information with all of you, and we share what we have. Grant, my team here, we're not sitting on a big pile of secrets, so we will continue to use this platform, the Fire All email, our newsletter, other mechanisms to reach out to all of you and keep you apprised. As I'm sure you can all appreciate, in the wheels of a bureaucracy, sometimes things turn a little slowly, and we're trying to be transparent with you. I hope that you can trust and honor that. But if you have other questions that we don't get to today, encourage you to chime in and raise those. Sometimes while the wheels of bureaucracy turn slowly, it is amazing how much actually has gotten accomplished, and want to celebrate the years worth of messaging and communication that we've had surrounding the needs of our fire program, the needs for work-life balance for our workforce. Looking at where we've come in 2020, 2021, and 2022, I think we're on a really positive trajectory. This year, the Office of Personnel Management did classify a fire series. It's not perfect. We knew that it wouldn't be, but we're working, through kind of the warts and bumps with that 0456 firefighter series, and work is underway to implement that classification standard by creating individual position descriptions. That process did get off to a really slow start. Not making excuses, it's difficult to edge match the USDA Forest Service, the different interior agencies, all of the folks in different departments such as OPM, OMB, and our Office of Human Capital at the department level, who've really stepped into the driver's seat on this effort for the Bureau of Land Management, Bureau of Indian Affairs, Park Service, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. We've gotten to a place where I think there is greater communication between our fire subject matter experts. So here in the national office, we've got LJ Brown, Rob Berger, and Jeff Arnberger, who's helping out with some of that effort. They are coordinating throughout the fire program and bringing those years of experience to the forefront. And we'll talk a little bit more. I know there are some specific questions about dispatch. Bringing that subject matter experience into the conversation about new position descriptions. And Cindy Pogue continues to serve the fire community in an outstanding fashion, providing that fire human resources perspective in the room. So we don't know yet when that first batch of PDs is going to come out. There is going to be a batch of DOI standard position descriptions. There's going to be a batch of U.S. Forest Service position. We are not going to be sharing PDs across agency lines, aside from within the DOI family. We also will have agency-specific standard position descriptions. So I would expect that it's fair to say the DOI standard PDs that we currently use will continue to be DOI standard PDs moving forward. We will have bureau-specific fire management officer PDs at the state and local level. And we will have bureau-specific PDs for a lot of those positions that the BLM tends to have, frankly, just a lot more of than the other agencies. Things like our mitigation education specialists, fire prevention, so forth. BLM is pursuing its standard position descriptions at the same time as DOI is building theirs. We had a meeting a couple of weeks ago where all of the different parties got together in the room in Boise, which was great. There's a new classifier for the Department of the Interior who's heading this effort, and she was very receptive to feedback from the fire community, from the fire directors. But at the end of the day, if we have different PDs from the Forest Service, there needs to be great parity across agency lines. We need to have a consistent approach to recruitment, i.e. we can't have one agency doing multi-graded supervisor recruitments and the rest of us not able to use that tool. I think that those concerns were heard loud and clear, and we will continue to exert leadership pressure to make sure that we stay the course on those. It's clear that other questions are out there related to pay and pay incentives. The pay incentives and then the long-term solution. Ben will talk a little bit more, I think, on some of those questions, and feel free to chime in now, but the stage, yes, we are confident that we have funding to get through fiscal 23 with the temporary incentive of $20,000 or 50% base wage. What happens after that? The intent is that we would shift from a one-time incentive to the long-term pay solution. Do we know what that pay solution is yet? No, we don't. There is a solution being worked with the Office of Management and Budget and Office of Wildland and Fire and USDA Forest Service to look at special salary tables or special pay rates. What those are and how they will interact or crosswalk with positions is yet unknown. So I recognize that everyone is keenly interested in what the long-term trajectory is for salary and compensation, and we absolutely do not know yet. We will, like I said, keep you guys informed throughout the winter as work continues on those and PDs come out and we have better expectations related to pay. But right now, we are confident that we have the funding for the incentive through this year. The intent is that after this year, a long-term pay solution would move into effect. We don't know what that pay solution is yet. Should there be a gap in that enactment, we will cross that bridge when we get there. It is not lost on Congress. It is not lost on agency leadership that the intent of these measures, this workforce transformation, the intent of a job series, new position descriptions, raising the minimum federal wage for federal firefighters. The intent is not to pay people less at the end of the day. That said, I don't know what that looks like on a permanent basis yet, but we will certainly let you know. We got a variety of kind of other sort of one-off questions and a lot of stuff related to the FLSA. We don't want to get into individual number crunching for folks. Ben has done an outstanding job working with folks in the states and at the local levels to help ferret out issues. We know that there were a lot of complications with these calculations and how IBC did everything. Best I can say is, make sure that you're familiar with your leave and earnings slip. Make sure that you're engaging with your supervisors. Supervisors in the units, state FMOs, I ask you to please get engaged. Please stay involved. We push information out to the state FMOs on a biweekly or monthly basis on all of these topics. And if we're having a situation where some of that information isn't making its way down to the ground level, let's work together to correct that. I will take a pause there, and I think, Cindy, do you want to talk a little bit from an HR perspective, what you're seeing on the PDs Anything more specific?
No, I think you covered it really well. I think overall, we are starting to make some good progress. Our fire SMEs are working pretty routinely, probably meeting 2 or 3 times a week to ensure that they're moving that standard PDs down the road pretty quickly. From a bureau perspective, I know we have to make a plan moving forward as well to identify all the positions within the bureau that need to be reviewed and looked at that won't fall under the DOI umbrella. Did a quick pull on that. We're looking at probably reviewing just over 100 PEDs across the bureau that we'll have to verify whether or not they need to move over. So it is quite the undertaking, but we'll move it along as quickly as we can. I know in one of the questions, there was a thing regarding dispatch positions, and just so everyone knows, when we met a few weeks ago with our Department Interior, we had Forest Service in the room and OPM was in the room as well. On the classification front, we had a very good conversation with OPM on the dispatch positions. Right now, they are not covered under the new series, but they're open to looking at those moving forward. Don't know how quickly that is, but we don't know what that'll look like in the future either. But that is there. It's not been lost, if anyone's curious.
Great, thank you. Yes, there's definitely a lot of interest and concern about where dispatch falls. To my dispatchers out there, you are not forgotten. That door has not been closed with any finality. And by way of other updates or related updates, the Fire Leadership Team has stood up a fire dispatch committee and sort of bringing that group together in a parallel fashion to the fire operations group, the fuels management committee, and so forth. And we will be leaning on that body of subject matter experts to provide input. We did make an offer to OPM, the folks sitting back in Washington, D.C., who wrote the classification standard. We invited them to come out and we can show them a variety of dispatch functions and centers in the area to help them get their questions answered by the technical experts on the ground. So feeling cautiously optimistic about where we stand on dispatch. Thanks, Cindy. As a reminder, the date in the bipartisan infrastructure law was to have PDs under the new 456 series in June of 23. We will see whether that deadline can be met. I will say that the team is really picking up steam and they have some good organizational, they have the work, I think, in a much better organized fashion that will hopefully allow some efficiencies once we start moving through those SPDs. So thank you. Ben, you want to chime in on some of the pay or the FLSA questions?
Yeah. I think Megan covered everything on the length of how long we have funding to pay incentives. It's true through the end of FY23, so don't see anything changing there. We had a variety of FLSA bill incentive questions, so I'm not going to answer each one specifically, but I am just going to give a summary of the process we have been following up until now and the process going forward. And then some maybe assistance on how employees can work through FLSA issues. So retroactive payments, this is just going to be a recap, but retroactive payments from pay period 2021 to pay period 14, 2022 were all processed in pay period 14. So process 2,400-ish retroactive awards for $21 million, a little over $21 million that pay period. Turned around the next pay period and started incentives for roughly the same amount of people. So biweekly bill-related incentives of up to $766 per employee and 40 cents. That runs, just for reference, full fire season, probably 1.8 million a pay period. We're probably down to closer to $1 million a pay period now, based on seasonals being laid off, or that's really, reduction in workforce as we go through the winter months. It'll pick back up as we get back into people coming on board, but between $1 million and $2 million a pay period. So it's a fair chunk of money going out in incentives every single week. Probably have, well, biweekly incentives. We know there was issues with biweekly incentives, either overpayments or underpayments. The same thing with retroactive awards, but retroactive was kind of a one-time shot. We were able to fix those fairly quickly. Biweekly payments, we know there are overpayments happening, probably in the range of 40 to 50 per pay period, and 99.9% of the time it's tied to a person getting a within grade increase or a promotion or a temp promotion that affects their percentage calculation. So my advice to all employees, if you're eligible for retention incentive and you're paying attention to your leave and earnings statement, you want to look on that your earning statement and see if you are getting paid more than $766 a pay period. If you see anything higher than that, that should be a red flag for you to reach out to your HR point of contact and have a conversation. HR is in the loop on changing incentives every time that they're for bill employees, changing the percentage, which results in an overpayment. But they can't see the actual payment that's happening. So they're doing their best there. If you see it, something like that, my advice is to reach out, get it corrected as soon as possible, because HR may not know that's happening for multiple pay periods. So the sooner you bring it to their attention, the sooner they can fix it, the sooner you can get your correct payment. But like I said, I'm providing a list every pay period. That list is going to state through Cindy to state HROs who are addressing those as they come up. But it's usually a week behind. So if we can address those as soon as possible, you'll get your correct payment. I'm going to try and share some processes with budget analysts in the future where they can start pulling those reports and not rely on that report to come with me, come from me. But really, the first line of defense is if you see something on your leave and earnings statement that looks wrong, bring it up through your supervisor, through your HR, and they can make that change through the HR system. This questions came up a few times in the last couple of months. Incentives are tied to your position of record. So if you're going on a temp promo or you're going on a detail, that as long as you maintain your position of record that's covered, your incentive goes along with you. If you change jobs and it's no longer under a covered PD, then that incentive will stop. But people have questions about that. Once again, reach out to HR. You can always reach out to Cindy and myself, and we can get that message passed on. Next part of biweekly payments is catch-up payments. So actually, unless you're a seasonal making under $40,000 base salary, you haven't been getting paid $766.40. You've been getting paid just a little bit less than that. So if you reference back to the FAQs, due to the nature of the action, we had to enter a percentage that was rounded down, which resulted in nobody getting paid exactly $766. We are, as of yesterday, starting those catch-up payments for employees from pay period 15 through pay period 22. It's going to vary for every single employee out there based on your percentage, your grade, your step, anywhere from $1 all the way up to several $100s, depending on the employees, all those things for the employees. So employees can expect to see those 24, probably not in paychecks till pay period 25, maybe pay period 26. But I would be looking for those, an award that you probably weren't expecting. It's going to be tied to bill catch-up payments. So we will probably 2 more times in the next year be recalculating that to make sure people are caught up from pay period 23 to a certain time, and then another catch-up payment sometime probably mid-year to the end of FY 23. It's just all to ensure that you are getting paid, especially if you're over $20,000, up to that $20,000 limit, because right now most people are probably a little bit short on that. Again, it's in the FAQs, number 6, the original FAQs that come out that talk that we're going to make catch-up payments. We're just finally getting to that. I can't share. I had an example, but we'll just skip that. FLSA, last one. This is probably the most questions from and the hardest to understand. So FLSA payments, retroactive payments were made in pay period 14. So if employees look at their pay period 14 leaving earnings statement, they're going to see if they had, I guess if they had any overtime, non-exempt employee between pay period 21 and pay period 14. Yeah, scroll down. We'll just actually scroll up since this is an example of an employee. This is an example of the catch-up payments. So you can see this person, due to the nature of the action and the percentage, was getting paid $747, should be getting paid $766. So I look at all the pay period labor for pay periods 15 to 22. There's a difference of $19 basically per pay period. So this person, we owe this person $153. Do that for every single 2,400 people out there to determine how much catch-up payment they need to be paid. So that's the process behind that. And then to FLSA, if you just scroll down, this is an example, employee who shared their LES with me. So for pay period 14, this is how it shows up. FLSA premium, and under the adjusted column, there's 174.76. That 174.76 covers pay periods 21 through pay period 14 for overtime that employee had. So that is a recalculation of FLSA to account for their bill incentive. We work back through the numbers based on IBC calculations of FLSA with bill. This person was paid correctly. The next is to the left, that 282.50. That is also a correct payment. So it's not spelled out clearly on your leave and earnings statement. They definitely have to do some sleuthing on this, but that is 282.50 is representative of their FLSA being recalculated with a bill incentive. We ran it both ways on if their incentive wasn't included, and they definitely got paid more and the correct amount. So I would say the vast majority of people have been paid correctly with FLSA. It's just not easy to figure out. The leave and earnings statement doesn't spell it out correctly. There's no breakdown of this is a recalculation of all your hours lined out easy for the employee. I completely understand that. On the flip side, we do know people have been paid incorrectly for FLSA, or they never had a recal done. I've had several employees reach out to me where I attempted to verify their FLSA and was not able to. So throughout the summer, eventually, I mean, through lots of discussions, I think, not through myself, but other people and myself, IBC took a look at FLSA and provided a FAQ on how HR professionals can validate FLSA payments for employees. So Sam shared a link in the chat. I guess I would sum it up with, if you have a question on whether your FLSA was paid correctly or not, or if your retro was paid correctly or not, there's a system in place for HR to validate that that payment. Contact your HR point of contact. they should all have this document provided by IBC, which is specific to bill incentives for firefighters, non-exempt. They can walk through that process and validate those payments. If they cannot validate those payments that you have been paid correctly, then they have a route to go to IBC after that, Interior Business Center, who sets up the system to do all the calculations behind in the system to make sure FLSA is paid correctly. Not a quick process for your HR. I mean, they will be able to get through it, but don't expect a, hey, look at this and an answer back in 5 minutes. They need to go through every single pay period, run through all the screens, but it is doable. I've directed several people and the IBC link, and I haven't heard any feedback of it not working yet. So that's my advice. I can do some preliminary checks just based on labor, but that is not the official system that's going to say whether you're paid correctly or not. So IBC set it up step by step for HR to go through and look at your FLSA. And again, I would say the vast majority of people have been paid and paid correctly. But I do know that there are, just like all of these things, the incentives, the retro awards, there are people with errors and there are issues out there, just like probably everyday normal pay. And when we send out the updated FAQs, I will have the links in there, or we'll put the links in there plus some further direction. Yeah, I would, and then back to, I guess, what we started off with, double checking your leave and earnings statement. I realize it's been a long time since pay period 14, but taking the time to go back through those, checking pay period 14 to see if you see the FLSA calc on there. Yeah, and working through your chain of command, working through your supervisor and making sure everybody's in the loop on the issues that are out there. I have a lot of people come to me direct, which is awesome. I try to include your supervisor, your state FMO, when I respond back, just so they know what's going on in their state. So, keep your supervisor in the loop. They may be able to answer those questions off the bat. But as we have been this summer, if there's something specific, we're always able to help direct you to the right person or attempt to answer your question. So.
Thanks. Ben, it's not lost on anybody that is a lot of math and it's a lot of employees. On behalf of everybody on this call and the folks that are not on this call, I'm going to say a huge thank you.
Oh yeah, and it's Casual Payment Center here at FA processes those with help from HR, who answers every error issue, but 4 people processing these when we need them to happen. So they did 5,000 awards in 2 pay periods on top of their normal AD job. So outstanding job by them. And then a lot of HR back and forth on making sure we have the correct systems in place, authorities in place, new process for everybody involved in a short time period. So even with all the errors, I think it's been hugely successful so far, but unfortunately, for some people, they are the ones who have the errors. And I realize no matter how successful we are, that impacts that person. So it's, we try to address those issues as they come up as soon as possible.
One other question that was raised with regards to pay and compensation was specific to how does that factor into my retirement? And retirement is really hinged on base pay that's set in 5 US code, and incentives, whether it's, this special incentive authorized by the bipartisan infrastructure law, whether it's, some other bonus or retention incentive, it does not count as creditable towards your base pay. The bipartisan infrastructure law did not say that this is, part of base wages at this point. So that is not an eligible amount to be added to your salary for the purposes of achieving a high 3.
Yeah, I think the hope would be is once we have new pay series,
Yep.
That's with the pay scale, with the series, that we would expect to see a base pay that counts towards the high three. Yeah.
Right, that was a lot of great information and a lot of resources that Ben has shared, that Sam has shared, that are out there to help you and assist you with any of those questions. And of course, like Ben said, he's here, but there are those other levels that are within your state and your organization that can help answer those as well as taking that personal responsibility to make sure what your pay stub looks like and things like that if something is out of sort. So we're all in this together. And like I said, and sharing that information is critical and vital to helping us all out from now and into the future. Next, we have a question that came from the medical side. And so we're going to have Tyler McAllen address that and talk about the medical operations program.
Okay, thanks. Excuse me. Yeah, so the question was, what's the BLM doing to ensure we have adequate medical support for our wildland firefighters? So really looking at this, kind of taking a step back, and it's kind of the federal wildland fire kind of safety philosophy that we recognize that our work environments are hazardous, right? It's a hazard-free work environment, not really achievable for fire operations. So our primary means to protect our firefighters, people out in the field, is that risk management process. Starting at the organizational level, working all the way down, strategic level, operational level. So, that's really the key in trying to keep our employees safe. We understand risk will never be zero. So kind of compared, a running parallel to that is our ability to take care of our employees when those things happen. So we're really excited with where we've gotten the last few years. Just last year, this last summer with BLM, we stood up our operational medical support program, which established kind of our process within the BLM for authorizing our EMS providers under the BLM. So not working through individual state EMS bureaus and different protocols and licenses, but working under one umbrella. So that includes standardizing kind of a national scope of practice, our set of protocols. We're going to have standardized equipment and training requirements and skills verification processes. So if you want to pull that map up, really excited. We have our national medical director, Dr. Drew Southard, has been in place, providing a lot of oversight for this program. Myself, recent position created here in support of this, as well as the national program manager for our operational medical support program. And then we have a committee of our BLM programs, the Operational Medical Support Committee. So you do have a rep from your state, that participates in that monthly. Really, our mission to be able to respond to, these incidents when employees get injured, initiate that, real early life threat, life-saving care, provide that incident within incident leadership, get individuals packaged and make rapid transport decisions. So we recognize the majority, of the injuries and things we see, that's going to be appropriate. And there's going to be times where, the most appropriate thing for that individual is going to be getting them to an emergency room. So we're trying to focus on those high yield skills, advanced airways, epinephrine for anaphylaxis, being able to reduce, dislocated joints, all part of this program. So really excited about that. The map you have here, these blue states, including the Boise Great Basin smoke jumpers. The blue states were all included in our pilot program this year. So we're really excited about that. Went really well. The green states are states that, we have kind of commitments. We're going to have those guys brought on with our program for next year. And actually Oregon and Washington, we brought them on kind of this early fall. So they're actually part of the program. Yellow states, both those kind of have existing EMS programs that we're working to coordinate with. I think they'll be part of the operational medical support program next year as well, and working with Colorado in their program as well. So, looking at next year, a lot of states, a lot of BLM employees participate in this. So we're really excited about that. I guess the other thing is we could put up a contact list. I don't know if you have that or not, but we can get it added up. If you have any questions about the committee or the program, interest in it, we'll have contacts for each state listed up there. And of course, you guys can reach out to me if you have any questions.
Great, thanks, Tyler. Appreciate that. And another couple questions that came in were concerning government charge cards and the prescribed fire program, and Megan's going to address those questions.
Sure thing. question of whether or not there is any hope of going back to one credit card instead of having individual cards for fleet and travel, etc. Dream Crusher here this Friday afternoon. Not right now. That's a DOI contract for charge card services. I believe it's JP Morgan Chase is the contract holder at this time. Those are usually negotiated on a 5-year basis. That vendor who was awarded the contract was unwilling to do one card for everything. Therefore, everybody gets to have a little bit thicker wallet. So sorry about that. That is something that, we've expressed. One of the lots of little administrative barriers or frustrations that we've elevated in conversations with DOI. That's something that we try to influence, but certainly do not control. That would be something that may be revisited in the next iteration of a contract. That's a back and forth certainly between the vendor and the department. So we'll hope for the best, and otherwise just expect to make sure you've got big pockets. Jam that wallet in there. I know that we received a couple of questions following up on the prescribed fire focus last week. Grant hosted that one, I believe. There was some clarification sought with regards to, is the BLM, is DOI really going to back its burn bosses if we have a slop over onto private land? And absolutely. Mike Ned, I think, has been pretty clear in his communication to all of us, very clear. In fact, that as we are working in the line within the scope of our duties, working in a responsible fashion, the government stands with us. I think that Grant used an analogy of, hey, if an employee is speeding, trying to make that meeting on time, and they get pulled over, we're not going to cover the ticket. They're willfully breaking the law. When we have a burn that slops out of bounds, that's not a willful breaking of the law. That's not an intentional action. We have every trust and faith and confidence in our employees doing the right thing, managing the burn to prescription, making sure that we are doing the upfront work, the good communication with our partners, the double checking on our burn plans, the good spot weather, the fuel moisture, making sure our data is accurate, is relevant, we're asking the right questions, we're doing the gut check. When you're doing your job and you're doing it right, you have nothing to be concerned about. So we can resend that leadership message from Mike Ned if that helps further relieve any anxiety out in the field. We continue to monitor the situation with U.S. Forest Service employee very closely, but we stand by our folks and stand by our program. That's a valuable tool in the toolbox, and we have every expectation that we will continue to use it. There was another question related to prescribed burning, and it was really on the staffing front. And hey, if we have a wildfire going on, we plug in the system what we need, and we expect to have those orders filled and get those resources. Why is it more onerous and complicated? Why can't we do the same thing for a prescribed fire? The two activities are inherently different, different funding sources. One is planned, one is not. That said, there are also opportunities and efficiencies to be gained. There is some interagency communication, specifically Forest Service is having some communication within itself on how they want to manage their entire prescribed fire program, but how that would be staffed and what that might look like. And we're having some very initial conversations at the interagency leadership levels in terms of statusing resources, sharing resources without cross billing, and what that would look like and how we might do that. But we're far from a solution that would lead to you staffing prescribed fires in a similar fashion to staffing an emerging incident. So great question. That's something that we'll continue to have conversation on and stay engaged with you guys out in the field on. Fuels Management Committee, I know, is watching that closely, as is our 600 shop here. So lots of information and program developments, I think, still to come as it relates to prescribed fire. Hope that answered the question. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Megan. Thanks everyone for that, for the updates that you guys have provided. Thanks, Sam, for putting the links in. She did put the link in for the prescribed fire from Mike Ned, so that is there to review, as well as in the FAQs. We'll add that for additional information too. So thank you very much for that. Right now, that's kind of all of our presentation. Now we want to open it up to folks that have specific questions. Go ahead and, like I said, put them in the chat and we'll get them answered, or go ahead and raise your hand, come on screen, and we can see your smiley face for this Friday.
Hey, you guys hear me? Is Ben sits there?
Yes.
Yes.
This is a question for Ben from Charlie Cronk. So with the spreadsheet or the document you provided with the business center, okay? Some issues that I think could be addressed there for confusion and stuff like that is you have a special locality for GS7 step or GS9 step 7. If you had general locality for people to reference that, there's a little bit of confusion there because you have a special locality for that GS9 step 7. Okay. Another thing is the overtime in the calculation is 40.5 hours, pretty close to 40 hours of base. That's a little confusing. If you had 30 or 50 hours of overtime, you have no overtime in week 2. So trying to calculate that FSLA, since each week it's done by week instead of the pay period. So if you had FSLA for week 1, FSLA for week 2, I don't know many firefighters that only work 1 week of overtime in a pay period to help calculate that. And then is there a chance that you guys are going to create an Excel spreadsheet for people to at least plug in their basic numbers as a reference of a baseline of where they're supposed to be in pay? Because I have created spreadsheets. I think they got maybe sent to you. I know they're not correct, but they were somewhat close. And it's a nightmare just if you understand the FSLA part. So
to answer your first question, IBC built that non-exempt, the what's in the link, Charlie. I did not build that. And then I guess to the second point, yeah, I do have a calculator. The issue is, and I almost shared it midsummer, but the issue I found out was depending on, you're right, it's maybe 90% accurate. Depending on what schedule the employee is work schedule the employee is in, FLSA is calculated differently between maxi flex versus a fixed. So when I started to share this with a couple employees or use it to verify some FLSA for employees, I found that it was wrong for certain employees. And when I sent that information to IBC, they came back and said it was correct for X reasons. So, I am willing to share the calculator. I just got to put a big asterisk on it that it can account for every single person's situation with FLSA. But I'd say it's 90% accurate. It will help show an employee the difference in their FLSA pay, assuming they're in a situation how I built the calculator. Yeah, I was hesitant though, I guess I was hesitant to share it because I knew as soon as it was wrong, because it wasn't 100% accurate, that I would get questions on that, but I can share it. And then the IBC, direction, I guess I can go back and look through that, but really designed for HR specifically. So I guess what I would do is if a person has questions on the FLSA and their HR person doesn't know what they're supposed to do, then that's the document they need to be directed to. Because when I don't understand the HR system, But when I walk through it with HR people who do, it makes sense to them. So I hate to say it's not an employee resource because you're right, super hard to explain for an employee who has no idea what that system looks like. But when presented in front of an HR person, that makes perfect sense to them. So maybe not the best employees affected, but the tool you need to bring with you if your HR professional doesn't have that information, which they may not. It's a long list of employees, just like on the fire side, trying to get information to. But that is the official direction to confirm, validate payment. But I can clean up the calculator. We can get it out. I can put some big red. This will give you a general overview of where you should be at for FLSA. They will be able to, the employee will need their leave and earn statement.
Well, and then they also will need to know their biweekly overtime or their weekly overtime, not their biweekly overtime to calculate the FSLA, correct, right? Because it's done
Depends.
by week instead of by pay period, correct?
Yeah, it depends on the schedule that they're in, their work schedule. That's why I say sometimes it's calculated, this is from IBC, sometimes it's calculated as biweekly, sometimes it's calculated as weekly. So that's, I guess, why I was hesitant to send it out. But, you know, I've just, in general, done it biweekly, and it's been super accurate for the majority of people. But you're right.
Can you add some information about how that is broken out, the biweekly or weekly for the FSLA, and what the parameters are for that in a document by any chance, so I could understand it better?
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to get with IBC to tell you the truth, because, yep, not, I hate to say not my wheelhouse, but definitely not an expert on that. That is handled at IBC. And as you've seen the examples in there, that's as good as we've gotten so far. I actually asked for a calculator, exactly where you're describing from IBC, and that's not coming. I can tell you that.
Okay. Well, I
Good
appreciate
questions. Thank you.
I appreciate you trying, because I tried myself and it's not easy. And my calculator was not correct either, but it was close. And so
I saw it, Charlie. Yep.
okay.
And your stuff got sent to IBC as an example. So
Thank you.
Oh, there's a question in the chat box, Ben, about clarification on FSLA adjustments processed.
yeah, so the retro payment and your pay period 14 FLSA calculation happened, started in pay period 14, and then every pay period after that, as long as you're non-exempt and you have a bill incentive, FLSA was readjusted every single pay period. After that, you just can't see it in your leave and earnings statement. You're just going to see an FLSA premium. It's going to have an amount in there. What should be happening is they're accounting for your bill incentive as your overall remuneration. So the calculator that I would provide, or that I've been using, you can see what your FLSA would be without a bill and what it is with bill. And that's how I verify employees' payments. As I pull labor, I see how much they're paid in FLSA with bill, incentive included, and usually that matches up. But for an employee to really see what their dollar per hour for FLSA, the calculator is probably necessary. It's like I said, not going to work every time for every employee.
Thanks, Ben, for that question, for the answer to the question. All right. Again, if you have questions, go ahead and send them in, and we'll provide these answers, examples, and links in the FAQ document that'll be posted, as well as a follow-up email with the recording. We'll get that out to you. But with that, there's actually, Rob Berger put a message in. Thanks, Rob, for that. With that, I'm going to pass it back to Megan. She's going to talk about some of the successes we have had for fire year 2022 and some of the things to look forward for 2023. Go ahead, Megan.
Right, thanks, Jen. So it's easy to focus on what we don't yet know, right? What's going to happen with the series? What's going to happen with pay? Is dispatch going to be in or out? How does this contribute to my high 3? And I'm not trying to minimize some of those uncertainties, but I want you to know that we will keep you informed as we can every step of the way, hopefully without wasting too much of your time saying that we don't have an update yet. In spite of the body of things that we don't know, I know that BLM Fire had a hell of a year this year, and it was a lot of success. There was a little bit of tragedy. We lost Colin Hagan in Western Oregon. We lost a contract firefighter with ODF, Logan Taylor. And in every instance, this program continues to step up, continues to shine, whether it's through loss of human life, whether it's through achieving 1.1 million and change acres for the Department of the Interior in terms of active fuels management, whether it's chunking away and making more of our temporary hires, those 1039s, career seasonals and career seasonals, permanent full-time employees. We are advancing. We are making steps to improve the strength of the program, the ability to accomplish durable work for the BLM on the ground, supporting local communities. The amount of hours that we spent training our rural cooperators this year was astounding. Like 7,500 different people received training from our BLM firefighters. It's a huge leveraging of capacity and a huge public service. We are transitioning. BLM has taken a huge leadership role in trying to transition how we manage incident management teams, moving from type 1, type 2 to complex incident management. If that is unfamiliar to you, please go back a few fire chats ago. NWCG, we did a whole presentation on that. We've hired a medical advisor. We've hired a mental health clinician. This program is growing and morphing in ways that were never foreseen by folks entering fire, 30 years ago. And it's really exciting. It's in large part because of, everybody who's on this call, all of the folks who are staff in our engines, staff in our crews, staff in our dispatch centers, our warehouses, our human resources shops, working together to identify the needs and identify those opportunities where we can make a difference and where we can contribute to become an employer of choice, to make this a great place to work and continue building on successes. A lot of new ideas have come up. We're tackling, recruitment and retention challenges all over the place. I'm really proud of some of the work that's going on in aviation. How do we attract and build grow our own pilots in such a tight labor market? We know that we will never pay everybody what they're worth. This is public service, no matter what you're doing for the BLM Fire program, and it's recognized. Hopefully, venues like this help you feel a little bit closer to the national office here in Boise at NIFC, and hopefully that you are getting information through the different efforts, whether it's emails, whether it's newsletters, dialing into these calls, talking with your supervisor, talking with your state FMO. I'd like to challenge all of you to be sharing information with your peers, with your employees, with other agencies. This is a BLM family conversation, absolutely, but we know that other agencies tap into these resources as well. Can't speak to exactly how things are going to shake out within the Fish and Wildlife Service or certainly within the U.S. Forest Service, but we are marching together down a path of workforce transformation and implementing of bipartisan infrastructure law, the Inflation Reduction Act, those things together. And in a lot of cases, particularly when it comes to the fire series, we should be more similar than we are different. I want to round out this year by just saying Grant and I, our national office here, are incredibly proud of the work that you've done, proud to be in service to this program. And I wish you all the very best this holiday season. We'll let you have your Friday afternoon back. Thank you so much for tuning in.
All right, thank you, Megan, for that. And appreciate everyone joining today, knowing that it's a Friday going into a holiday. But like she said, I just want to close out for everyone participating in these calls. The basis of these calls was way back when in the springtime when people were asking some questions and we thought, no, we're just going to come up front And we're going to start these Fire Chat Fridays and be able to address and meet the folks on the ground and help them with information sharing and getting that out there. I actually think that the BLM is one of the only agencies where you will see on any given Fire Chat Friday, the human resource officer, the budget chief, the deputy or the assistant or the fire director will be on these calls. They may not be upfront and impersonal, but they are in the background listening and addressing questions as well. So those one of the many things of why should we be working for BLM Fire? That's why. With that, everyone have a fabulous holiday. Thank you for joining. Our next session will be in the springtime, and we're actually going to kick it off on March 10th with Tyler's program and Dr. Drew with our operational medical standard support, highlighting the program, seeing if we get some good recruits and get that program up and running. That's been great safety staff that we have, full staff going on. So looking forward to having that session as well. So everyone have a wonderful holiday. Enjoy your time with your family. And if you're taking leave, enjoy that leave as well. Happy Thanksgiving, and we'll talk to you guys next spring. Thank you.
Thank you.